I came back to this life and was deliberately late. I was stalling, putting off going to the county clerk's office with Leo Carter. In my last life, the moment Leo found out I was pregnant, he and a woman named Chloe Smith vanished for 20 years. He only came back when I was on my deathbed, staring at a photo of Chloe, who had already passed. He'd said to me, "If I had just waited one more day to marry you, would everything have been different?" When I realized I'd been reborn, Leo was standing right outside my dorm room door, waiting for me so we could go get our marriage license. I lied, telling him I had to drop something off for a colleague, and sent him ahead to the clerk's office to wait. The second we parted ways, I walked up the mountain trail behind the project site. I ended up at Mrs. Gable's place, sinking into the old wooden rocking chair on her porch, watching the morning fog fill the valley below, feeling the sun on my face. Mrs. Gable handed me a steaming mug of coffee. "Mandy," she said, her brow furrowed with curiosity, "aren't you supposed to be getting hitched with that nice engineer, Leo, today? What are you doing up here?" I took a sip of the hot coffee. "I had a nightmare, Mrs. Gable," I said with a small smile. "Woke up and just couldn't shake it." She patted my shoulder reassuringly. "Oh, honey, that's just a dream. What matters is the life you're living right now. Once you and Mr. Carter are married, you'll have so many good days ahead of you. What's one little nightmare to that?" I froze for a second, then nodded with a smile that didn't quite reach my eyes. "You're right, Mrs. Gable. I'll just stay here a little while longer, and then I'll head down. Marry Leo Carter? Not in this lifetime. In my last life, just as Leo and I stepped out of the county clerk's building with our marriage certificate in hand, he literally ran into a young woman. Her name was Chloe Smith, and she lived in Pine Creek, the small town where our engineering project was based. On the long drive back to the site, Leo was completely silent. I assumed he was just internalizing his new role as a husband, creating a respectable distance from other women. I didn't find out until I was dying that it was much more than that. In that one collision, Leo had fallen in love with Chloe at first sight. He wasn't being respectful. He was drowning in regret. Regret that he hadn't waited just one more day to marry me. After that day, Leo grew distant. I'd often find him staring off in the direction of the town, lost in thought. When I asked him what was wrong, he'd just brush it off. Eventually, between his evasiveness and the demanding work schedule, I stopped asking. I figured I'd just wait for him to sort through it and come to me when he was ready. When the project in Pine Creek finished, Leo and I were assigned to different teams, forcing us into a long-distance marriage. I thought it was temporary, but every subsequent assignment sent him to the other side of the country from me. I brought it up with him, but all he would say was detached. "I have to follow the company's orders." It wasn't until I was back at the D.C. headquarters for a debriefing that I overheard my colleagues talking. I learned that, except for that very first transfer, every single one that followed had been a direct result of Leo actively requesting to be sent as far away from me as possible. We had a massive fight. Afterwards, he held me and apologized, but he never explained why. The next morning, he was gone. I thought our marriage was over. But life throws you curveballs. I was pregnant. When he heard the news, Leo's coldness evaporated. He became attentive, caring. He'd clumsily try to cook for me. He'd press his ear to my belly to hear the baby blowing bubbles. He'd walk with me every single evening. Then one day, he just disappeared. I asked everyone, searched for him for so long. No one knew where he went. No one could tell me if he was alive or dead. I went to my prenatal appointments alone. I gave birth alone. I took our son to the hospital alone. I raised him alone. I buried both my parents and his alone. I thought he was dead, but in my final moments, as my life was flickering out, he suddenly appeared at my bedside. That's when I finally learned the truth. For 20 years, he had been with Chloe. They had adopted a son and poured all their love into him. But Chloe had died young, from what he called a broken heart. Her one regret, he told me, was never having been his wife. Leo said he was sorry, but he also said he resented me. It made no sense. If he didn't love me, why not just tell me? He could have divorced me and given Chloe the life she wanted. He had no right to abandon his wife and child, to ignore his own parents. What right did he have to resent me? But the cruelest cut came from the son I had raised with my own two hands. He told me he was jealous of the boy Leo and Chloe had adopted, the one who grew up showered in love. He blamed me for bringing him into this world without his permission. Only then did I realize that my son had been in contact with his disappeared father for years and had hidden it from me the entire time. I stayed at Mrs. Gable's for about an hour. After saying my goodbyes, I headed straight for the county clerk's office. As I arrived, I saw the scene unfold perfectly. Leo was helping Chloe Smith to her feet after they'd bumped into each other. I watched Leo stare at Chloe, completely captivated. The flicker of irritation on his face from waiting for me melted away, replaced by sheer astonishment. Last time, I was too busy helping Chloe up and making small talk to notice Leo's reaction. Now, watching from a distance, it was all so painfully obvious. "Leo, I'm here," I called out, walking toward them. "You must have been waiting forever." Leo's body went rigid. He looked flustered. "Oh, Mandy, you're here. I was just—" I noticed Chloe look at me. It wasn't the same look as last time. Her expression was complex, and was that a flash of jealousy in her eyes? By the time I focused on her, her face was back to a mask of innocence. It must have been my imagination. I was curious. This time, with no marriage license signed, how would Leo choose? Would he break up with me for Chloe? Or would he go through with it, marry me while keeping her on the side, just like before? "It's getting late," I said, feigning urgency. "We should go inside and get this done." Leo's face went pale. "Ow, my ankle, it really hurts," Chloe cried out right on cue, shattering the tense silence. In my last life, Chloe wasn't hurt. How'd she get injured this time? And the timing was just too perfect. Could she be reborn too? I studied her, searching for a sign, but found nothing. Leo rushed Chloe to the local urgent care. The doctor said that apart from a tiny scrape that was already healing, there was nothing wrong with her. Chloe's face turned bright red. Leo, however, seemed secretly relieved. On the way back, we passed the county clerk's office again. Leo looked conflicted. "Mandy, they're closed for the day. How about we come back tomorrow?" "We'll see," I said coolly. "You should pick the right day for something like this, anyway." Of course, in this life, there would never be a right day. I let a small smile touch my lips. Leo sighed. "Okay, I'll let Mrs. Gable know when we get back." Leo and I had ridden our bikes into town. For the ride back, Chloe, without a moment's hesitation, settled onto the back of Leo's bicycle. Leo shot me an awkward glance, but didn't object. I pretended not to see, got on my own bike, and started pedaling ahead. The cool evening breeze carried their voices back to me. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the happiness in their tone and the sound of Leo's barely suppressed laughter. How long had it been since I'd seen Leo truly laugh? In my last life, it felt like after he met Chloe, he never smiled at me again. But now, none of that mattered to me. As we entered the project's residential area, the other workers saw Chloe sitting on Leo's bike, one arm wrapped snugly around his waist. They'd look at me, some winking, others just shaking their heads with a little cough. I knew what they were trying to say, but I just smiled back and headed straight for my dorm. In preparation for our wedding, Leo had already rented a small duplex for us. Most of our things had already been moved in. I passed by it now, stopping my bike to look. It had a bedroom on each side of a small living room, with a little fenced-in yard out back. In my past life, when I came back from the clerk's office, the sight of the little "Just Married" banner he'd hung up filled my heart with a sweet, naive joy. No one could have known that the groom who had so happily decorated his new home the day before would be so utterly cold on his wedding night. That night, like countless lonely nights that followed, we lay in bed in silence. We didn't touch. Neither of us could sleep. Without waiting for Leo, I pushed my bike back to my own dorm. The first thing I did was pull out the letter from the locked drawer of my desk. It was a transfer order back to the D.C. headquarters. It wasn't just a transfer. It was a promotion and a significant raise. In my last life, I turned it down to marry Leo. 3 months later, we were assigned to different projects anyway. After that, it was just one cross-country transfer after another, all orchestrated by him. Then I got pregnant, and he disappeared. I was left alone, raising a child, caring for 2 sets of parents, my career taking a back seat. I was slowly moved from critical projects to marginal departments, never getting another promotion or raise for the rest of my life. I remember my son, when he was in elementary school, looking at me with disgust as I rushed around, perpetually exhausted and plain. "All the other moms are so pretty," he'd said. "Why can't you be more like CHL, like them, and take care of yourself?" Like CHL? What? Like Chloe? The more I thought back, the more horrified I became. Even then, my son was already in contact with his disappeared father, and he helped him hide it from me my entire life. It was laughable, utterly, tragically laughable. At dinner time, Leo didn't come find me like he usually did. I took my own meal tray to the company cafeteria. There, I saw him and Chloe sitting face to face. They were putting food on each other's plates. Leo said something, and Chloe covered her mouth, laughing. When he saw me, Leo froze, then quickly stood up. "Mandy, you're here." Chloe just got back to town, and she didn't have any food at her place, so I brought her here to get a bite. "I was ordering a plate back for you. I just didn't expect you to be here so early." Early? The dinner crowd had already thinned out. There were only scraps left. I couldn't help but remember that day in my past life. After we got the license, Leo said he was going to the cafeteria to get us dinner. He came back hours later, empty-handed. He just said flatly, "They're out of food. We'll have to skip dinner tonight." He just said flatly, "They're out of food. We'll have to skip dinner tonight." The only sound in our new home that night was my stomach growling. So, even back then, Leo was already taking care of Chloe. I said nothing, just walked past him. I scraped the last of the leftovers on my tray and took it back to my dorm. I was halfway through my meal when someone knocked on the door. It was Leo and Chloe. Leo looked at me, his expression unreadable. He cleared his throat. "Mandy, I wanted to ask you about something." I just stared at him, waiting. Leo glanced at Chloe, who was standing beside him looking timid and small. His eyes softened with a tenderness I hadn't seen in years. When he spoke again, his voice was firm. "Mandy, Chloe just got back from the city. You know she's all alone here, and her place hasn't been lived in for a while. It needs a good cleaning." He paused. "Look, since we haven't officially signed the papers yet, I was thinking maybe we could let Chloe stay in our house for a few days." I looked at Chloe. She flinched like a startled rabbit and ducked behind Leo. In this life and the last, I had seen two completely different versions of Chloe Smith. If someone told me she wasn't reborn, I wouldn't believe them. But I didn't have the energy to play her games. I was done with this man. Whatever Chloe did now was just background noise. "Sure," I said. "It's your rental. Your call." Leo was stunned. He clearly hadn't expected me to agree so easily. The entire speech he prepared was stuck in his throat. But, I added, "I don't like people touching my things. I'll go over in a bit to pack up my stuff." Leo blinked, then rushed to say, No, you don't have to. I'll move your things into the other bedroom." So, he didn't just want her to stay in our house. He wanted her to sleep in our bed. How pathetic. I saw Chloe's lips curve into a triumphant little smirk. After dinner, I grabbed a flashlight and walked over to the duplex to pack my things. When I got there, Leo was busy helping Chloe make the bed. He was using the brand new floral sheets I had picked out especially for our wedding night. Leo looked up, startled to see me. "Mandy, what are you doing here? I already moved all your stuff into my room." "Oh," I said flatly, turning to go to the other bedroom to get my boxes. Leo followed me, his face a mess of emotions I couldn't decipher. "Mandy." Just then, Chloe came running out of the master bedroom. "Leo, honey, aren't these the sheets you and Mandy were going to use for your wedding? Is it really okay for me to sleep on them? I really don't mind. I could just sleep on a pile of my dirty clothes." Her voice trailed off into a pathetic whisper. I saw the pity flare in Leo's eyes as he looked at her. He turned to me. "Mandy, look, all the sheets in the house are new. This set." I didn't miss the flicker of victory in Chloe's eyes. She just didn't know yet that from the moment I was reborn, I had no intention of keeping a piece of trash like Leo. "Whatever," I said with a shrug. "You paid for them. Your call." "Thank you, Mandy." "Thank you, Leo. You're both so good to me," Chloe gushed. Wow, I never thought I'd get to stay in Leo's wedding house and sleep in Leo's wedding bed. The way she said it sounded all wrong, and even Leo seemed to sense it. But he just looked at me, saying nothing, as if testing my limits. Chloe, realizing she'd maybe gone too far, covered her mouth in mock horror. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mandy. I didn't mean. Please don't misunderstand. There's nothing going on between Leo and me. I should just go sleep on my clothes." She made a show of moving toward her suitcase. Leo immediately stopped her. I decided to play along. "It's fine, Chloe. Don't worry about it. You can sleep peacefully. It's no big deal to me." Leo couldn't read anything on my face and just stood there, looking thoughtful. I was too busy packing to pay him any mind. Chloe's little act was designed to make me furious, to highlight her own meekness in front of Leo and make him despise me. But the me who had lived a second life couldn't care less. Her only saving grace was that she hadn't pulled this stunt in front of me in our last life. And this time, it wasn't nearly enough. I leaned in close to her. "You're overthinking it, sweetie," I whispered in her ear. "Why would I care? Your Leo is just trying to be nice to you. It's perfectly understandable. I wouldn't even care if he decided to marry you instead. The only question is, would he?" I glanced back at Chloe and gave her a little wink. Her face went pale. She couldn't understand why I was so different from the gullible, foolish Mandy of our past life. Then, a flicker of realization crossed her face, and when she looked back at me, her expression was one of pure triumph. I finished packing my things and hoisted the boxes onto my shoulder, ready to leave. "Mandy!" Leo called out from behind me. He stepped forward, reaching for my load. I sidestepped him, refusing to help. What a joke. Chloe was reborn. In our last life, she was the other woman for decades. In this life, she was clearly staking her claim. She already viewed Leo as her private property. I wasn't about to get myself dirty by fighting over garbage. Leo saw me flinch away, and a wounded look filled his eyes. Mandy, are you angry? I can explain. How novel. The man who wouldn't say a word to me in our last life, who let me waste away in ignorance, suddenly wanted to talk. But I already knew what he was going to say. He'd spin some tale about just wanting to take care of her, all while emotionally cheating. An explanation? Pointless. Besides, Chloe wouldn't allow it. Right on cue. Hearing Chloe's shriek, Leo forgot all about me and ran back into the house. I let out a small, bitter laugh, adjusted the boxes on my shoulder, and walked away. In my last life, I was married to Leo for 21 years and died at 45. By any measure, that's dying young. Giving birth to that ungrateful son of mine had been difficult. I'd hemorrhaged badly. My health was ruined from that day on. Before I could even recover, I was left alone to care for him, deal with Leo's unreasonable parents, hold down a job, and search everywhere for my missing husband. My body deteriorated day by day. Just managing to raise my son to the age of 20 was the result of pushing myself beyond all limits. Ever since Leo disappeared, I hadn't had a single good night's sleep. Now, reborn, I hadn't married him. I hadn't destroyed my body with endless toil. I was healthy, and finally I could sleep soundly. I slept through the night without a single dream. For the first time in 2 lifetimes, I truly rested. The next day, I requested a meeting with my supervisor and told him I would be accepting the transfer back to the D.C. office. He was surprised. But I thought you said you didn't want to be separated from Leo after you got married? I just shook my head. I'm not going to marry him. Right now, my career is the most important thing. A look of relief and approval spread across my supervisor's face. In my past life, he had tried to advise me. Mandy, he'd said, with your talent, you could go so much further. But I'd been blinded, throwing away a golden opportunity for a worthless man. I asked him to keep my departure quiet, and we arranged a date for me to leave. Leaving his office, I went straight to the train station. In those days, buying a train ticket was an ordeal. You had to wait in line for hours. As I rode my bike past the duplex, I glanced through the fence. I saw Leo and Chloe in the yard, brushing their teeth together. Leo casually reached for a towel hanging on the clothesline and handed it to Chloe so she could dry her hands. She looked up at him, her eyes full of adoration. It seemed one night had produced a quantum leap in their relationship. When Leo saw me ride past, his face went white, and he quickly stepped away from Chloe. I looked away, ignoring one's guilty conscience and the other's wounded expression. Following my memory, I found the train station. I paid to have my bicycle shipped, then joined the throng of people in the ticket hall. Everyone traveling back then was loaded down with huge bags and bundles, carrying everything from sewing needles to entire bedrolls and baskets onto the train. Looking at the crowded platform, I decided to travel light. I'd sell what I could and give away the rest. After a long wait in line, I had a choice between a standing ticket and a sleeper car. I chose the sleeper. I'd live a life of hardship. This time, I was going to be good to myself. By the time I left the train station, it was late afternoon. After a lifetime away, I'd forgotten to bring food for the long wait and had missed lunch. I was starving. I asked for directions and found the old-school diner where Leo and I had our first date. A colleague had set us up. We met here for what was essentially a blind date. Leo was handsome, with clear skin and the kind of clean-cut look I liked. He was also an engineer like me, and both our families were in the D.C. area, which I thought would make things convenient. He seemed pleased with my appearance, too. We decided to give it a try. During our courtship, he wasn't overly affectionate, but he wasn't a bad boyfriend either. He was considerate in daily life and would help me work through tough problems at work. There wasn't some big, passionate spark between us. It was more that we were suitable. I thought we would live a quiet, peaceful life together. I never expected him to drop a bomb on my entire existence. Leo proposed after we'd been dating for 2 months. I remember he seemed genuinely happy about the decision to marry me. But in the end, a childhood sweetheart is no match for love at first sight. Chloe's appearance gave him the spark he'd been missing. His heart strayed. Love strikes where it will. But he had no right at all, to throw everything away for that love, to selfishly ruin my life. I parked my bike and went inside the diner. It wasn't crowded at this hour, so I immediately spotted Leo and Chloe sitting in a corner booth. Chloe saw me first. She stood up and waved enthusiastically. Mandy, are you here to eat? Leo and I are just having a late lunch. Come join us. Don't be a stranger. It's just one more plate. Spoken like a true professional, a woman who could steal someone's husband for 20 years. In 2 sentences, she positioned herself as the hostess. Oh, I'd hate to impose, I said, my smile not quite reaching my eyes as I glanced at Leo. I wouldn't want to interrupt your date. Leo was instantly flustered. He scrambled to get up and pull out a chair for me. "Oh, Mandy, don't misunderstand." Chloe chimed in. "It's not what you think between Leo and me. He just thinks I'm too skinny and wanted to help me get my strength back. Right?" Another point for her. I ignored Leo's gesture and slid into the booth next to Chloe. Leo awkwardly rubbed his nose and sat back down. I was stunned by the sight of the table. It was covered in food, steak, fried chicken, all the sides. This meal must have cost him half a month's salary. He was certainly generous with Chloe. Chloe placed a piece of steak on my plate. "Mandy, you have to try the steak here. Leo said it's the best in town and that I absolutely had to order it. He even said he'd get me another one to go." She beamed. "Go on, try it. And the fish, you have to try the fish. I've never had anything so delicious. Leo said he knows how to cook it too, and that he'll make it for me all the time when we get back." Leo could cook? When I was pregnant in my last life, he was a disaster in the kitchen, dropping pans and breaking bowls. I ended up having to kick him out and cook for myself. So love, it turned out, could be faked. I took the piece of steak and savored it. It really was good. Food from that era was the real deal. The beef was rich and flavorful, and the river fish was perfectly fresh, with none of the muddy aftertaste you get these days. I ate slowly, completely ignoring Chloe's monologue. "Ah!" Chloe suddenly shrieked, making me almost drop my fork. "Oh, I'm so sorry, Mandy. I just got startled by a fishbone." She took a breath. "Anyway, where was I? Oh, right. Mandy, have you ever tried Leo's cooking? If you haven't, you should come over tonight. He promised he'd cook for me." "Right, Leo." "Huh? Startled by a fishbone?" More like startled by my indifference. She couldn't stand that I wasn't reacting. "Go on, gloat. Let's see who you'll have to show off to once I'm gone." "You're so lucky, Chloe," I said sweetly. "I've known Leo all this time and had no idea he could cook. You've only known each other 2 days, and he's already promising to make you dinner. Thanks to you, it looks like I'm in for a treat tonight." She had been trying to make me burst with jealousy. Instead, I couldn't have cared less. Chloe was dumbfounded. Throughout the exchange, Leo's face shifted from green to white. I kept eating. When a simple side salad-eyed order arrived, I pushed it toward the center of the table and invited them to share. The rest of the meal was much quieter. I could finally eat in peace. Leaving the diner, I said a quick goodbye to Chloe and Leo and rode off. I needed to get to the post office to call my parents. In my last life, after Leo disappeared, I was a whirlwind of motion, raising a child, caring for his parents, and working, all while spinning in circles. For some reason, even though my family was just as well off as his parents had never liked me. They didn't just refuse to help with my son. They found creative ways to torment me. If I showed the slightest bit of resistance, they would go to my workplace and cause a scene. A steady job was hard to come by back then, especially with a child to support, so I endured it. My own parents, hearing about my situation, helped me out constantly while also raising my brother's kids. They wanted me to remarry, but when Leo's parents found out, they stormed over to my parents' house, screaming that our family was trying to drive them to their graves. Not only that, but whenever a man showed any interest in me, Leo's mother would follow us, with my son in tow, and have him run up to me, crying and making a scene. Eventually, no one was willing to even meet me. I gave up on the idea of remarrying and focused all my energy on raising my son. During those years, my parents suffered so much because of Leo's family, but mostly, they just worried about me. Even on their deathbeds, I was their biggest concern. The call connected quickly. Hearing my parents' voices again after a lifetime, I broke down crying. Hearing the sob in my voice, they grew frantic, thinking Leo had hurt me, and threatened to come down and give him a piece of their mind. I calmed them down and told them everything that had happened recently, including my decision. My parents were silent on the other end of the line for a long time. Finally, they just said that if this was a decision I had thought through carefully, they would respect it. I let out a breath I didn't know I'd been holding. I told them about my transfer back to D.C. My train was in 3 days. They promised they would make all my favorite foods and be waiting for me at home. When I got back to my dorm and opened the door, I found Leo sitting at my desk, flipping through one of my technical manuals. I'd almost forgotten he had a key. Seeing that the drawer containing my transfer letter was locked, I breathed a sigh of relief. With my relationship with Leo so uncertain, I didn't want any more drama before I left. Leo saw me and immediately stood up to pour me a glass of water. He clearly had something to say, but he hesitated, unable to start. I sat on my bed, slowly sipping the water, waiting for him. Finally, he couldn't hold it in any longer. He turned to face me. "Mandy, it's not what you think between me and Chloe." I swallowed the water in my mouth. "And what is it I think?" I asked flatly. Leo was speechless. If I were the Mandy from my past life, I would have believed him, with or without an explanation. But I had lived through it all. I had seen and experienced my own tragic end. Even if Leo explained it 1,000 times, his words were meaningless to me now. On my deathbed, he had told me himself. He fell in love with Chloe at first sight. It was true love, he'd said, nothing like what he and I had. In his story, I was the third wheel, the flaw, the splinter under the skin. Mandy, whether you believe me or not, I just feel that Chloe's had a tough life. Both her parents are gone. She's an orphan. I just wanted to look out for her a little. As Leo explained, his gaze darted around the room. He couldn't even look me in the eye. How could I possibly believe him? Still, I said, fine. I believe you. Can you leave now? I'm exhausted and I want to rest. Oh, and please leave my key. Leo's face fell, becoming a rigid mask. He could obviously tell I didn't believe a word he'd said. After Leo left, I wiped down the chair he'd been sitting on. It felt dirty, truly dirty. I started to pack. I hadn't accumulated much during my 6 months here. Some clothes, bedding, and daily necessities. The real challenge was sorting out the things we had bought together for the wedding. It looked like I'd have to find time to settle the accounts with Leo before I left. Just then, there was a knock on the door. It was Leo again. He was holding a small tin box, the kind used for pastries. He held it out to me eagerly. Here, Mandy. Open it. I took the box and opened it. Inside was a wad of cash and ration tickets. Leo smiled. I had this already. After we get married, all my money is yours to manage. You could just give me an allowance every month. Looking at the man in front of me, I felt a sudden, profound sense of alienation. In my last life, forget him giving me his salary. After we got our license, I never saw a single cent from him. When I was hemorrhaging after childbirth, his parents didn't contribute a dime. In fact, they'd yelled, just let her die. It's a waste of money to keep her alive. It was my parents and my brother who paid the doctors to save my life. Later, when his parents got sick, I was the one who paid for their medicine and their funerals. During the 20 years Leo was missing, he had been secretly in contact with our son. He must have been in touch with his parents, too. I don't know if he ever sent them money. I only know that before his mother died, she called our son into her room. When he came out, he was trying his best to look sad, but I could see a flicker of glee in his eyes. After the funeral, I searched her room and couldn't find a single valuable thing. Later, when I fell gravely ill, I couldn't afford treatment. I just had to endure it, dragging it out until my final moments. Thinking about my last life, about how Leo probably knew I was sick and needed money, about how my own son might have been hiding money his grandmother gave him rather than using it to save me. A dull, heavy ache settled in my chest. Leo saw me, started to tremble. He rushed forward to steady me, but I shoved him away. I leaned against the wall, taking deep breaths until the feeling passed. When I looked at him again, my eyes were ice. A jolt of fear went through Leo. I looked down at the money in the tin box. Since he'd brought it, there was no reason for me to lose out. I could never settle the debts of my last life, but I could certainly settle the accounts of this one. I took out half the amount we had spent on wedding supplies. Then I handed the box and the remaining money back to Leo. Leo was confused by my actions, but didn't ask any questions. Anyone, no matter how dense, could feel the change in me. He couldn't understand what had happened in those few short minutes, but he could sense that something was spiraling out of his control. After confirming I was physically okay, he left, looking back over his shoulder every few steps. That night, I slept poorly. I dreamed of my past life. I saw Leo's parents telling him over the phone that I had almost died from blood loss during childbirth. I heard Leo on the other end, just giving a flat-hand response. I saw them, when my son was still an infant, sneaking him out to meet Leo behind my back. Leo knew I was looking for him, but he conspired with everyone to hide from me. No wonder no one who knew him would ever talk to me about it. I even dreamed of the colleagues I'd worked with for years. I heard them praising Leo and Chloe's great love story. As for me, his wife, I was just a mistake in their narrative, a red string of fate that the matchmaker had tied wrong while drunk. Huh, how absurd. I woke up to a tear-soaked pillow, but I was still alive, healthy and alive. I still had a chance, didn't I? For the next 2 days, I was busy with work, handing off my projects. The dinner that Leo was supposed to cook had been silently canceled after the incident with the tin box. I thought that was the end of it. But that evening, Chloe showed up at my door. She invited me over for dinner. Her hospitality was so insistent it was hard to refuse, so I agreed. When it was time, I went over with a small housewarming gift. Through the fence, I saw them. Chloe and Leo were wrapped in an embrace. Leo's hand was on her breast, kneading it gently. When he saw me, his face went a shade of white I had never seen before. Chloe looked equally horrified, fumbling to fix her shirt, which was almost completely unbuttoned. I didn't say a word. I just turned and walked away. I'd had my fill of the big show Chloe was serving tonight. There was no need to leave a gift. I hadn't gotten far before Leo caught up to me. He grabbed my arm, his voice desperate. "Mandy, listen to me. It's not what it looked like." "What wasn't it?" I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. "The part where you were tangled up with your clothes half off? Or the part where your hand was somewhere it didn't belong?" Over the past couple of days, while I was busy with work, Mrs. Gable had kept me updated. She couldn't stand home wreckers, especially one like Chloe who not only knew what she was doing, but flaunted it in front of the wife. She gave me a running commentary of Leo and Chloe's disgusting behavior. She told me people in town had seen Chloe deliberately brushing her body against Leo, and he didn't move away. Someone saw them eating from the same bowl. Someone else saw them holding hands where they thought no one could see. The Leo, standing in front of me, now looked pathetic. I couldn't understand why he would do all those things with Chloe and then run to me, begging me not to misunderstand. Did he want a repeat of our last life, where I stayed home and took care of his parents while he and Chloe lived out their love story? Before Chloe showed up, I was the only one you would let get close to you. She hadn't been here for an hour before you were carrying her to the clinic. You knew her for less than 3 hours, and you let her wrap her arms around your waist on your bike. Less than 5 hours, and you ditched me to take her to the cafeteria for a meal. Less than 7 hours, and you let her move into our house, sleep in our bed, and use the linens I bought for our wedding. You knew her for less than a day, and you spent half a month's salary to buy her a fancy dinner. And in that same day, you offered to personally cook for her. You don't avoid her touch. You eat from the same bowl. You hold her hand, and now you're holding her, touching her, and you still have the nerve to stand here and tell me that there's nothing between you? Do you really think I believe that? Perhaps it was the relentless force of my words, but Leo's body began to tremble. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "Let me guess," I continued, my voice cold and sharp. "Let me guess why you're so afraid of me misunderstanding, why you have to explain, why you even tried to buy my trust with your salary. On the day we were supposed to get married, you fell in love with Chloe at first sight. She felt it too, so she faked an injury to stop us from signing the papers. And at that moment, because you'd fallen for her, you didn't actually want to marry me anymore. But over the last few days, you've probably figured it out. You love Chloe. You want to have a passionate romance with her." I looked him straight in the eye and said, word by word, "But at the same time, you need a good wife at home to take care of your parents. And it would be even better if that good wife could see them through their old age and bury them for you. Am I right?" At my final words, Leo's head snapped up. His eyes were wide with disbelief. Seeing his shock, a wave of sadness washed over me. Sadness for wasting a lifetime on a man so full of cold calculation. Sadness that the few sweet moments I thought we'd had after our wedding were nothing but a joke. I couldn't lie to myself anymore, and I wouldn't let him lie to me either. That night, as I was in my dorm packing my last few things, Chloe appeared. She stared at me, her face twisted with malice. "Mandy Hayes, so you came back too." Seeing my calm expression, she let out a short, harsh laugh. Her eyes filled with contempt and mockery. "So what if you held onto the title of Leo's wife in our last life? You were nothing more than a glorified maid for his parents. The son you worked so hard to raise? He called me mom behind your back. Isn't that hilarious? Your husband was mine. Your son was mine. And this time, even though you're back, you can't change the fact that Leo loves me. This time, I will be Leo's wife. It can only be me, even though I had already lost all hope for the son of my past life. Hearing that he called Chloe mom still sent a sharp pain through my heart. But it was okay. It was okay. In this life, whether he permitted it or not, I would not be bringing him into this world. Chloe stood before me like a victorious rooster, crowing on and on. But when she saw my expression, pity, sympathy, compassion, but not a single trace of anger, she faltered. Then she fled. As far as I was concerned, she was just another pitiful soul, same as me. This time, without me in the background to clean up their messes, could she and Leo really live as happily as they did before? In the dead of night, unable to sleep, I stepped outside my dorm for some fresh air. I was startled by a dark figure sitting on my doorstep. The faint light from inside my room revealed it was Leo. He reeked of alcohol. I had no idea how long he'd been sitting there. I realized that even after living a second life, I still couldn't understand him. I grabbed my flashlight and went to find Chloe. When I told her to come get Leo, she was clearly stunned, but followed me back to my dorm without a word. Leo was passed out. Chloe struggled to haul him to his feet. I didn't help. He was the man she loved. She could deal with his messes herself. The next morning, as I was leaving with my luggage, Mrs. Gable came running over. She grabbed my arm, telling me to come see the show. I followed her to what was once supposed to be my home with Leo. The scene was chaotic. Leo was standing there, his face contorted with rage, staring down at Chloe, who was sitting on the floor, her clothes in disarray. Apparently, after Chloe got Leo home last night, she couldn't stop thinking about how he had chased after me, how devastated he was when he returned, how he had passed out drunk on my doorstep, mumbling my name in his sleep. She couldn't take it anymore. She took advantage of him while he was drunk. Even though he thought she was me, she still slept with him. As I pieced together the story from the neighbor's gossip, I just felt sick. I picked up my suitcase to leave, but Leo grabbed my arm. "Mandy, let me explain. Was this man ever going to give up?" I took a deep breath and looked at him, my eyes completely flat. "Leo, I thought I made myself perfectly clear yesterday." He searched my eyes, desperate to find a flicker of the old affection. But he was disappointed. All he found was the indifference he reserved for a stranger. Because I didn't care, I wasn't angry. And because I wasn't angry, none of it mattered. He finally understood. I truly didn't care about him anymore. Leo's hand fell away from my arm, limp. His voice was muffled when he spoke from behind me, a low, defeated whisper. "I'm sorry." "Sorry for what?" "For this life or the last." I left Pine Creek and returned to Washington, D.C. The moment I saw my parents, healthy and happy, the dam broke. I sobbed. Every day since I'd been reborn, I had put on a brave face, but deep down, I was carrying the weight of a mountain. It was the weight of my entire life, a life so heavy it had been suffocating. It wasn't something I could just easily let go of. A part of me wanted to see Leo and Chloe suffer 1,000 cuts for what they did. But I had my parents. I had my brother and his family. I couldn't ruin my second chance at life over two worthless people. Now, at this moment, seeing my parents, who hadn't yet been burdened by my tragedy, I finally felt the weight lift. After a few blissful days of being a cherished daughter, I threw myself back into my work. Without a child and Leo's parents to drag me down, I excelled. It wasn't long before I was promoted and given a raise. I was even offered a position as a guest lecturer at a university, fulfilling a lifelong dream of teaching. The next time I heard news of Leo was a year later. Chloe had finally gotten her wish from the last life. She married Leo and became his official wife. Shortly after the wedding, Leo brought her back to D.C. His parents were, to put it mildly, a handful. In my last life, they looked down on me despite my good family background and career. They absolutely despised the unemployed Chloe. They made it their mission to torment her. The Carter household was a constant war zone. Leo wanted to move away with Chloe, but his parents threw fits, threatening to die if he left. They believed Chloe was a gold digger who had trapped their son. The thought that she had ruined my perfect match with Leo made their blood boil. They refused to let him take her away. They were determined to keep her by their side and work her like a dog. Love at first sight doesn't stand a chance against the daily grind of dishes and laundry. After a while, when Leo looked at Chloe, the magic was gone. Without Leo's love to protect her, Chloe became just as shrill and bitter as his parents. Before long, Leo applied for a transfer to an out-of-state project. This time, he didn't take Chloe with him. I heard later that Chloe fought back. She and Leo's parents descended into a toxic cycle of mutual torture. All of them were miserable. Then came the news that Leo was having an affair. In a fit of rage, Chloe went to his company's HR department and filed a formal complaint against him. She accused him of sexually assaulting her back in Pine Creek on the night he was drunk. That was a twist I didn't see coming. It just goes to show, anyone who can willingly be the other woman for a man's entire life is not to be underestimated. But what surprised me most was Leo, the man who had resented me because of Chloe's one little regret. The man who looked at her photograph with such soul-crushing grief. The man who was so full of pain and remorse when I left him. This time around, his great love for Chloe didn't seem to last very long at all. I suppose I had overestimated him. A person who is rotten to the core is only capable of loving himself. How would he ever truly feel remorse? It was never about love or loss. It was about the bitter taste of wanting something he couldn't have. Thankfully, this time, I had escaped the cage. My future was bright and clear.